Hello and welcome to the alumni series of the Marketing Practice Podcast.
Tune in every fortnight when we will be bringing you an interview with one of the alumni from the MDP.
Find out where they are today, how the MDP has helped them in their career to date, and some of their fondest memories from their time on the MDP.
If you're interested in finding out more about the MDP, check us out on social media.
If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd really appreciate it if you shared this with your friends who might be interested in finding out about life on the MDP.
And a quick reminder that there is still great content available for your ears on Spotify that was put together by last year's MDPs, in particular by Emmett Mahoney and Learning Set 6. Those episodes still remain relevant today, and there really is some nice gems in them. With all that being said, we hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the podcast.
Today's guest for the Marketing Development Practice Podcast is Stephen Dalby, a graduate of last year's MDP class. Stephen completed his undergraduate degree in food and agribusiness in UCD and now is working as part of the marketing team in Alltech. So thanks for coming in, Stephen. Can you tell me a bit about your background and what you did in food and agribusiness in UCD?
Yeah, so I started food and agribusiness in 2015. It was a 4-year course, and the first 2 years are kind of generally based around science. Then the last 2 years are going towards business. So that was my background. I got into it. I'm no actual ag background, but I got into it because the school I went to had a kind of small pet farm out the back, and I did ag science for the Leaving Cert. So I ended up working on that farm, as you know, Ben, for probably 3 years. And I loved it, so that's why I kind of decided to go into food and agribusiness without an actual kind of ag background.
And how did you find out about the MDP? Was it through online? Was it a friend of yours? Or
so I originally was researching masters to do, and I came across it there. But to be honest, I was just happy to get into a master's. Was my first thought. I just wanted to be able to get into one. And then actually a friend of mine, I'd read about the MDP. A friend of mine knew people who had done it before, and he told me all about it. And to be honest, the biggest thing that kind of stood out to me was that there was no exams. That was the first one, because I hated that in college. You know, the couple of weeks before exams, where you're panicking and then cramming to get everything in, and you never feel like you're done. And I also didn't really have any kind of professional experience before during my undergraduate. I completed a 6-month internship, but that was about it. So I wanted to kind of get professional experience while actually doing a master's as well, which is exactly what kind of stood out to me. So then I applied, not really knowing too much about it, apart from what my friend had told me. So that was the kind of main focus. I applied to other masters as well, and got accepted into another, but I decided to go with the MDP.
And what was your main reasoning for joining the MDP? Like you said, you didn't have any marketing background to begin with. So do you think that kind of affected you going into the MDP? Like, were you nervous having no background in the for the MDP in marketing, or was it okay?
No, I didn't really mind, to be honest. I'd done a little bit of marketing in my undergrad in the business side of things, but I'd also done a little bit of, obviously, like tax and accounting, and as you have to cover kind of all the different aspects of it. But definitely marketing was what stood out to me as the kind of the area I sort of wanted to go into. And also a lot of my family, my oldest sister works in marketing in Spain. My auntie's worked in marketing for years. She's quite high up and has been in a few different companies. So I kind of grew up around people who were in marketing. So I didn't feel like I was going to be missing something going into a master's in marketing. But I did find, actually, a week or two before I started, I was getting worried about, do I have enough knowledge, or am I going to be starting this with people who are way ahead of me in terms of their marketing knowledge, which actually turned out to not be the case. Generally, having a general kind of business degree probably gave me more of an insight into marketing than most people had. I mean, you guys know there's people that were in the masters from a sports science background and loads of different disciplines. So no, I was worried at the start, but obviously as soon as we started a week in, I realized I was going to be fine.
Yeah, I think like that's the great thing about the MDP, is that you can come in from any background. Like I came in from food science and Amelia came in from social science. And yeah, you have to get up to speed in the first couple of weeks, but once you're there, it can definitely be done. But it's coming to that time of the year where final year students may be thinking about what are they going to do next year. And one thing about the MDP is the application process. It's a little bit unique, to say the least. Can you explain to the people who are listening today what the application process is like and what it's like to go through?
Well, I presume it'll be different this year as well. My application process that I went through was obviously before COVID, so it was you obviously send your application off. Then I had a kind of aptitude test online to make sure I got into the next round, which is just one of those generic kind of half an hour tests that you do where you can't really get answers right or wrong. Got into the next round, and I'd heard bad things. I'd heard it's really intense, and it could be very tough. So I did a 3.5 hour interview with 8 people in the room, and in that interview, we were given I think there was 3 different aspects to it, if I remember. We were given an object, and we had 3 minutes to come up with a marketing campaign around that object, and then 2 minutes to present on that marketing campaign. We were then given a business scenario. We had 3 minutes to come up with what we would do in that business situation, and 5 minutes to present on it. And then finally, we were given a case study. But I was involved last year, or a learning set close to mine were involved last year in the application process, and it was essentially just a kind of form or the same sort of process but brought online.
So we had that kind of same concept but online. So we kind of had the 3 different sections in the interview, kind of making up a marketing concept and sell a product online. So it was not exactly 3.5 hours, but kind of did have all those elements you described in your one. So next we kind of wanted to ask you, what do you think the benefits are of that type of interview process? Like, I know it's kind of daunting at the beginning and Doug can throw you in the deep end, but do you think like it did benefit you afterwards?
Yeah, well, first of all, you know what you're getting into. Obviously nothing after that interview is as intense as that interview once you're actually in the MDP. I mean, any presentation or whatever you do when you're in the MDP, you have a lot of time to work on it, or you might know a bit about the topic, or you get to choose the topic yourself, or any project you're working on, you'll be able to do a lot of research before you're kind of put into any situation where you have to talk to a customer or a client about it. But definitely, I think that was it was one to make sure you can think on your feet, but then after that, you kind of feel like you can do anything you're given once you get into the MDP, because you've already been in that really tough situation. I also found it's a really, especially at the start, it's a really good talking point to get to know people, because everyone's had the same terrifying experience. Everyone wants to talk. Everyone's happy to talk about it, and I think that was the kind of the main aspects of it that stood out.
Yeah, like it is tough, and I think one thing that I know, like when I went in, I had like just automatically respect for everyone who went in, because I knew they went through the same thing too. And as you said, like it was something we all had in common. But yeah, exactly. One of the things that the MDP, I think, is really known for throughout Smurfit is the massive social reputation it has. You know, many advisors said that they like developed relationships in the MDP that they never kind of experienced in their undergraduate degrees. Like I know on a personal level, you had less mates in your undergraduate degree than the MDP, but was this the case for you? And are you still close to a lot of the people in the MDP that you were friends with then?
Yeah, so there was 27 people in my group last year in the MDP, and every single one of us would still be in contact with each other. Like there's people that you wouldn't necessarily have met in your kind of everyday life or your everyday social circles that you end up being really good friends with. Obviously, I started when we were able to be in the office full time, and it was 9 to 5 every day in the office, and that sounds daunting. It sounds like it's a 9 to 5 minimum. It sounds tough, but a lot of that 9 to 5 is social time. You're there working with your friends on projects and on work, but still having a good time, still being able to enjoy yourself. It was hard then in March. Obviously in March we left the office. I think we had about 2 days notice, and then we were told, right, we're going to head home for the rest of the week, because obviously COVID's in Ireland now, and we'll see where we go from there. And we ended up not going back into the office again. I haven't been in since, actually. So that was strange. I found that tough, because working from home, you're still working on the same projects, but you're not having the kind of camaraderie around being in the boardroom or being in a meeting room with your friends. So that taking away that social aspect was tough. But hopefully by this time next year, everything will be sorted.
Yeah, no, we've been like lucky enough to experience a little bit of both. Obviously, because the cases are so high at the moment, we're fully at home. But like as you're saying, like when I went in, the first thing I was thinking was how I'm going to manage doing like 9 to 5:30, an hour for lunch, no breaks in between. But like you do find you pick it up very quickly, and now the day goes so quickly, and it's second nature to do that. But another thing, apart from the social side, that separates the MDP from other masters is the huge emphasis they put on personal development. So was there skills you think the MDP has given you from a personal point of view that you might have used in your personal life?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that stood out for me was confidence when presenting or public speaking. I mean, I remember the first presentation I had to do in the first week of the MDP, and I remember standing up at the front and feeling my heartbeat in my neck and thinking, Jesus, I'm about to have a heart attack here. I was so nervous. And I'd spend 2 days putting together, 2-3 days putting together a presentation, and hours into it worrying about it. But then by the end of it, I could get up and talk in front of clients and customers. And for those client and customer presentations, you have a lot of preparation. But for the Monday meetings and the Friday meetings, I don't know if you guys still have them. Like you can put one of them together in 3 hours by the end of it if you need to. And it's just that it's the speed of work, I think, that came to me, and then also the confidence in my own work as well. As I said earlier, I had no kind of professional background before coming in, and it just gave me the confidence to know that what I was doing was okay to a kind of professional standard.
Yeah, definitely. I think Ben and I are also kind of working on that as well with our confidence. At the beginning, we were both so nervous. Ben also had kind of a habit of selling with his hands in his pocket, which we since knocked out of him.
I thought Amelia doesn't need any more confidence, but
Stephen, as you know, the workload in the MDP is quite big, and it's kind of not run like other courses in Smurfit, in the sense you kind of have to request your annual leave. You only get the 2 weeks off for Christmas, and it's 9 to 5:30 on a good day in the MDP. So Ben and I were kind of wondering, and for people listening, how did you cope with this, and did you any advice on kind of having a good work-life balance? Because Ben and I were really struggling with this at the beginning, but I feel like we kind of got the hang of it now. But we'd love to hear kind of your experience and your advice on that.
Yeah, well, I was working as well while I was in the MDP, so that was tough. I generally, some days I'd finish I'd have to leave the office at 5 to get to work for 6, and then I'd be working from 6 to 11. But the biggest thing for me, and I know Ben nonstop talks about the gym, so the biggest thing for me is to be able to get out and get for your walks, and just be able to clear the head, especially if I'm working from home. I mean, I can't really see anyone at the moment, so I've been trying to, I know it's very kind of generic and everyone's telling you to do it, but get out, get steps in, and if I can do a bit of a workout from home, even just to clear the head. I mean, last night I realized at about 9 o'clock that that there was no tea in the house, so I drove to the furthest Super Value from my house, which is about a half an hour drive past other shops, just to be able to get out and about and clear the head. I think at the moment the best thing is make sure you're changing up scenery and trying to get yourself out and involved in other things.
Yeah, definitely. Ben and I are actually in the same learning set, so we kind of made this kind of learning set rule. We do take between like 6 to 7:30 kind of off for a little break. Like we do our 9 to 5, and then we kind of have our dinner, and then we do kind of take that hour for a walk, and then we kind of regroup afterwards. And we have noticed that like it just really like clears your head and focuses, and that's actually something we've only kind of brought into our learning set recently. Like we didn't do it before. And we
what internals? Oh, sorry, Amelia, go on.
Sorry, our internals we're on this podcast one, we're on public relations, and then we're also on the events. And now for this semester, we're also on guest speakers as well, which is really interesting. We kind of have a few cool people lined up for this semester, so we are really looking forward to that.
I was on guest speakers and events actually. Well, events last year was just Smurfit Ball. That was just what it was called, just Smurfit Ball. But I think I probably have a few guest speakers that we got last year. If you want me to send them on to you
definitely,
after.
Yeah, we'd be really lucky to get the Smurfit Ball this year. We've lost it, but we're hoping to kind of maybe have it in July or something. We'll see if Harry will agree, but we are quite disappointed.
We were so lucky. So ours was I think Thursday the 10th of March, I think was Smurfit Ball, and I remember 2 days before people were messaging us saying like, are you going to be taking temperature checks? And we were thinking, what the hell do they want temperature checks for? Like, you're grand, there's only like 10 cases in Ireland. And by the following Thursday we were all working from home. So if our Smurfit Ball was a week later, we would have had to refund all the money, all the tickets. It would have been such a disaster.
God, that's so lucky. Yeah, we're kind of struggling at the moment to kind of think of events, like things online that people are kind of willing to do. So it is definitely tough. So now we're kind of going to move on to your experience after the MDP. So we're aware that since September you've begun working in Alltech. So if you wouldn't mind, could you explain to people listening today who don't know what Alltech is, who they are, what they do, and also why you decided to work for them?
Yeah, so they're set up in 1980 by Dr. Pierce Lyons. A lot of people in Ireland would have heard of Dr. Pierce Lyons before. So they're basically, what they do is they deliver smarter and sustainable solutions for agriculture. So traditionally, this was usually around feed additives. So feed products that would go into animal feed that would then make the animal more sustainable, or make the product that the animal produces more sustainable and more efficient as well. And then they've also gone on to they offer a lot of services and everything to improve farm and agri-food and agribusiness kind of efficiency and sustainability. It's a global company, so they have about 5,000 plus employees, and they're in every continent across the world, so it's a large company. How I actually heard of it, so I'd heard of them a couple of times in my undergraduate, being in food and agri-business management, but we actually did a project for Pierce Lyons Distillery, which is a whiskey and gin company that he set up in St. James's in 2017, I believe it was opened. So I did a project for them while I was in the MDP, and then obviously we made connections through Alltech through that. And I think their mission and vision is all about a planet of plenty and trying to involve sustainability with agriculture. So obviously with my background and then the way things are going now is a really good fit for me.
So then we were kind of wondering, what does a typical day look like for you working in Alltech? Like, have you really incorporated like the skills you've used in the MDP in Alltech?
Yeah, so the start of it was tough, obviously, because I've only been into the office in Dunboyne 3 times or 4 times now, maybe. So the start of it was very tough getting to know people online, which is something that I'd actually unexpectedly, when I started the MDP, I didn't think I'd be learning how to do that. But obviously, from March on, if we're talking to clients or customers, it all has to be online. So kind of meeting people is something that I had to get used to after March, which is a really important skill that everyone's going to have to know now, and that I had to have going in. So my role is the European marketing coordinator for the beef and dairy section. So traditionally, Alltech, basically what I do is Alltech marketed, kind of have mass marketing. So they'd put out a European campaign or sometimes a countrywide campaign that they kind of hope it hits all divisions of whatever they needed to hit within Europe or within that country. But they want to move toward, or my role now is to move more towards kind of insights and getting data and really targeted marketing. So finding customers within regions, in countries, and then going to those customers with valuable insights, valuable data that I can bring to them to then improve their profitability, their sustainability on farm, and overall try help the environment through helping them with their whatever agricultural products they might need.
Yeah, it's really amazing like how quickly you've taken on like so much responsibility, and like it's great the way I suppose the MDP like played a role in helping you prepare for that, considering that, you know, the year before, I know you touched on, did a little bit of marketing and food and agri businesses, but like the MDP really was like you know, your marketing like real foundation for the job, it seems. But Stephen, you've obviously like, you know, gone through the whole experience and come out to the other end. If there's one piece of advice for someone who was thinking of applying for the MDP, what would it be?
Just to go ahead and do it, get it done, because if you get into the MDP, it's extremely tough at times. There's times where you're ridiculously busy, but it's also probably the most enjoyable year of my life. You make some of the best friends you'll ever make, and you get to spend every single day with them, whether you like it or not. But it really makes you have kind of close bonds with people. And then on the other side, which is just an aside, it gives you such good opportunities. I mean, I was lucky enough to have this job within a week of finishing the MDP. The interviews were lined up before I'd finished. So professionally going forward, I hope it stands to me. But the actual year itself is so enjoyable if you've got nothing else out of it.
Yeah, and like one thing I think we were talking about this earlier is we found like it's going so quick. Like often we still think, you know, we're only at the beginning, but then you kind of get a wake up call and realize you're halfway through the year. Yeah. But just to finish off, Stephen, where would you ideally like to see yourself from a career point of view in 10 years' time?
I was actually asked this in my interview for Alltech. I think to be known as a name within the agricultural industry in Ireland and potentially then in Europe through marketing and sales as a kind of go-to person for basically a knowledge hub where you know when you have those people within an industry, you think of them when you think of a certain aspect of whatever that business might be. So I'd like to be that kind of go-to person or one of those go-to people within the next 10 years, hopefully.
But unfortunately, that's all we have time for today, Stephen. I just want to say a massive thank you from everyone at the MDP for joining the podcast today. We really appreciate you coming on and sharing your advice with us and even with potential students who might be thinking of applying. So thanks very much for coming on.
Thanks, Amelia. Thanks, Ben, for having me.